ঠিক আছে, that's okay. Om Sthapakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharmasarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. So glad to see you all again. And today is Mahalaya. Almost in India, of course, it is what time now?
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. So it's already gone. So now it's working. Yeah. That's it. Hello. Okay. So today is an auspicious day because Swami Akhandanandaji's birthday. So if you have any question, we can keep it ready if we have time. So you read a little bit of the life of Swami Akhandananda. It will not be, we cannot do justice to read his life. It is a life of austerity, life of renunciation, life of wandering days in different places, experiencing so much of physical hardship and other things. We cannot read out the entire life, though it is not, there are big books also, but at least the minimum thing. So we shall try to just turn over the pages of his incidents here and there. Swami Akhandananda spoke of how hard he worked to make his character strong and pure when he was a teenage boy. He said, I was extremely orthodox in those days and scrupulously observed all the Brahminical customs in accordance to the scriptural injunctions. For example, I used to bathe 4 times a day in the Ganga without applying any oil to my body. And as a result, my skin and hair became very dry. I was a vegetarian and cooked my own food. I was in the habit of chewing a myrobalan, a kind of bitter nut, after meals, so my lips become white. I used to practice pranayama along with my other morning and evening spiritual disciplines. I increased the volume of pranayama so much that my body began to perspire and shiver. Practiced kumbhaka, breath retention, by diving into the Ganga and grabbing a stone. I was fascinated by this play with prana. Swami Akhandananda was born as Gangadhar Gangopadhyay in Ahiri Tola area of western Calcutta. His father was a priest and a Sanskrit teacher who also practiced yoga and tantra. Gangadhar's mother, Bama Sundari, was a devout woman. After having 3 daughters, she prayed to God for a son, and thus Gangadhar was born. When Gangadhar was 8 years old, he had a large abscess between his eyebrows. He told the doctor to perform the surgery without anesthesia. The doctor was amazed at his stoicism. Gangadhar was extremely intelligent and memorized the Gita and Upanishads. As a small child, he mastered the English alphabets in one day. Now, all are extraordinary. Gangadhar was admitted to the Oriental Seminary, but he was not particularly interested in formal education. From his very childhood, Gangadhar was so compassionate that he once gave his own shirt to a poor classmate whose shirt was torn. Without telling his parents, he would secretly give food to beggars. He was a strong moralist and always helped his wayward friends. In 1877, Gangadhar and his friend Harinath met Sri Ramakrishna at Bagbazar in Bagbazar, Dinonath Basu's house. Seeing the master in Samadhi, Gangadhar's spiritual longing increased. Sometimes he would go to the cremation ground and imbibe the mood of renunciation by observing the impermanence of human life. Seeing Gangadhar's monastic tendencies, his mother was eager to arrange his marriage. That was very natural. And too much spirituality, mom thinks to make it straight, get him married. And in those days, it was very, very natural. The early days, they used to get married. Knowing her intention, Gangadhar said, Mother, arrange my marriage quickly and bring another mother home. She will help you in cooking and other household work. Gangadhar's mothers understand the pure nature of her son, who considered all women to be his mother. After that, she never again pestered him about getting married. What a good idea. You are a mother, bring another mother. Yes, she can help you in cooking. But our relationship is different. She will be my mother. Now, in 1883 May, when he was 19 years old, Gangadhar visited to Ramakrishna and Dakshineshwar. The master received Gangadhar cordially and made him sit on his small cot. He then asked, Have you ever seen me before? Gangadhar said, Yes. I saw you once when you was very young at the house of Dinanath Bose's house. The elder Gopal was also present. Addressing, the master said with a smile, Oh Gopal, listen to this boy. This boy says that he met me when he was very young. This little one had an early boyhood also. Gangadhar looked exceptionally young for his age, and moreover, he had a childlike demeanor. Gangadhar later recalled this first meeting with the master. In the afternoon, the master asked me to go to the Panchavati after saluting the deities in the Kali and Vishnu temples. Later in the evening, I returned to master's room. I heard music being played from the two Nahavats concert towers, and the temple garden was filled with melodious sounds of the Vesper bell. The master was seated on his cot, barely visible. He did not have any outer consciousness. As he had asked me to stay overnight at the temple garden, I did so. The next morning, when I was about to leave for Calcutta, he said to me with a smile, Come again on Saturday. After a few days, I went to see Ramakrishna for the second time. The evening, the master initiated me by writing a mantram on my tongue. He then lay down, putting his feet on my lap, and asked me to give them a little massage. I was quite strong as I practiced wrestling. No sooner had I begun to press his feet, he cried out, What are you doing? Legs will be crushed. Press them gently. Immediately I realized how soft and tender the master's body was, as if his bones were covered with butter. I was embarrassed, and I asked with some fear, How then should I massage? Pass your hands over them gently, he replied. Niranjan also did like you at first. On weekends, many devotees would come to visit the master. In order to avoid the crowd, Gangadhar would go on weekdays. One morning, Sri Ramakrishna asked me, Gangadhar, to accompany him to the Panchavati. And there he told me to meditate facing the east. He left for a while, and when he came back, He sat up my body straight. He remarked, "You become a bit bent during meditation." We then returned to his room. After that, he asked me to carry a water pot and go with him to the Chandni, the bathing ghat on the Ganga. He had his fresh cloth. He asked me to sprinkle a little Ganges water on it. There is a picture of Mother Kali of Kalighat in his room, which he saluted. Then he ate a little dry prasad of Lord Jagannath's prasad, and gave some to me. Standing in the front of the picture Kali, he said several times, "Om Kali, Om Kali." He then put the palm of his right hand on his chest with the three middle fingers touching the palm, and he stood there with half closed eyes for some time. After that, he took the offered fruits and sweets that had been sent to him from the Kali temple and Vishnu temple. He then drank a little bit bell sarbat and gave me the prasad, after which he sat on his small cot and smoked from a hubble bubble. So you can get some idea how his normal day used to take a bath, how he used to take and how he used to come first, take the what you call the Jagannath Prasad, saluted Mother Kali, all these daily rituals. Then he quoted from the Gospel some conversation. Once Dakshineshwar, some non-dualist devotees came from Varanasi to visit the master when Gangadhar was also present. He later recorded their conversation in his memoirs. It is, of course, Gangadhar's recording. One person asked, "Sir, how can he, who is absolute Brahman, omnipresent and pervading the whole universe, incarnate himself as man?" The master replied, "You see, he who is absolute Brahman is the witness and is immanent everywhere. The divine incarnation is the embodiment of his power." To this, one of the gentlemen said, "Sir, this body is the root of all evils. If it can be destroyed, all evils will cease. The raw earthen pot, when broken, are made into pots again," the master said. "But the burnt ones, once broken, can never be remade. So if you destroy the body before attainment of self-realization, you will have to be reborn and suffer similar consequences." Like that, there was conversation went on. On another occasion, Gangadhar went to Dakshineshwar and found that the master was in Samadhi. When he came down to normal consciousness, he spoke of God vision and self realization, saying, Ramakrishna says, one's own chosen deity is one's own self. It is Ramakrishna saying to Gangadhar. The chosen deity and the Atman are identical. The vision of the chosen deity is equivalent to self knowledge. Here is a great uh, statement that someone gets the Ishta Darshan, that is his Brahma Darshan. That is Sri Ramakrishna's emphasizing. Now, in the middle of 1885, Ramakrishna developed throat cancer. He moved to Shampukur in Calcutta and then to Kashipur. Gangadhar began to serve the master whenever he could, continuing all the while his spiritual discipline and study. At night, he used to meditate with Harinath, Turiyananda, on the bank of Ganga. Gangadhar's father observed that his son was not interested in completing his education, so he found a job for Gangadhar in a merchant's office. Gangadhar worked there a few days and then gave it up. He then fully engaged himself in spiritual disciplines and service to the master. He washed the dishes at the Kashipur garden house and did all sorts of errands. Even on his deathbed, Sri Ramakrishna took care of his disciples' needs like a loving mother and chastised them for any mistake. He told them not to misuse any article or be extravagant because the devotees support him with their hard earned money. One morning, Gangadhar was in the master's room. The doctor asked the master not to talk because of his painful throat. However, out of motherly affection, the master asked Gangadhar through a gesture, "Have you brushed your teeth?" Gangadhar nodded his head. On another occasion, one of the attendants said, "I know." Immediately, the master raised his head from the pillow and remarked, "What do you say? You know?" Never says, "Say, as long as I live, so long I do learn." Gangadhar learned a new lesson. Sri Ramakrishna formed his monastic order at Kasipur and distributed ochre cloths to 11 of his would-be monastic disciples, saving one for Girish Chandra Ghosh. He gave ochre cloth to Gangadhar and Harinath on another day. Ramakrishna passed away at 1:02 a.m. on 16th August 1886. Captain Vishwanath Upadhyay came and after examining him felt some heat in the body. He guessed that the master was in samadhi. According to his instruction, Gangadhar rubbed ghee on the master's back whole night. The master's body was later cremated at the Kasipur cremation ground and half of his relics were crushed. Now, after this, wandering in the Himalayas and Tibet, that are very interesting stories. Some of the young disciples of Sri Ramakrishna who resided at the Kasipur Garden House for a couple of weeks and then moved to a dilapidated house in Baranagar. And then Sushi began the worship of the Master. Christmas Eve 1886, Gangadhar went with other disciples to Artpur and took vows of renunciation there. He returned home and told his father secretly that he would leave for the Himalayas very soon. His father also gave his consent. In February 1887, Gangadhar took the ochre cloth that the master had given and left the monastery without telling anyone. Only his noble father came to Howrah station to see him off. What a father! Supporting the monastic yeah, wish of running like a wandering monk. He blessed his son and said, "Go, my son, fulfill your mission in life. This world is unreal. I bless you. May you attain unflinching devotion to God." What a father. So Gangadhar first visited Bodh Gaya, where Buddha attained nirvana, and he met the famous yogi Gambhiranath of the Natha sect, who affectionately told him, "My boy, stay with me. You will attain everything." Young Gangadhar replied, "My master used to say that one cannot have a glimpse of the infinite without seeing the Himalayas or the ocean. So I am eager to see the Himalayas." So one day, then he met Durga Shankar, a devotee of Ramakrishna, and said to him, "I talked to you such a long time and I noticed your eyes never blinked. It is a sign of a divine nature. You are truly a disciple of Ramakrishna." Then he met Pramodadas Mitra, great Sanskrit scholar. While in Varanasi, Gangadhar met great Saint Trilanga Swami, received his blessings. He then went to Swami Bhaskarananda with Pramodadas Mitra, who knew the great Swami personally. Bhaskarananda was a great Sanskrit scholar and he expressed willingness to teach Vedas to Gangadhar. The young man replied, "The power of sight, which I would use for attaining knowledge by reading books, please turn it inward so that I can experience the Atman." Bhaskarananda marveled at him and remarked, I see you are a yogi. So even everyone is interested to know the Sanskrit, no? But when Bhaskarananda wanted to teach him, he said, I should not divert my energy. What I shall divert in learning the Sanskrit, I'll divert in focusing on God. In March 1887, Gangadhar wrote Pramod Das asking him to send a drum to Baranagar monastery for the monks' Vesper service. Thus, he first introduced this great person to Swami Vivekananda and other disciples of the Master. Early one morning in Haridwar, Gangadhar climbed up to the Chandi hills and there met Kamraj, a tantric saint. Kamraj was impressed with Gangadhar and asked him, What do you want? He replied, I want that experience which is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Attaining that one grips not and desires not. Oh, you want self knowledge? Said the saint. You don't want my divine mother? The saint's passionate love for mother touched Gangadhar's heart. Gangadhar walked 60 miles barefooted to reach Tihiri, where he rested a while. When he then continued his long walk over the high Himalayas range, visited Jamunotri and Gangotri, very important holy places. Like that, Gangadhar stayed at Gangotri for a week, decided to visit Kedarnath, Badrinath, like that. This all travel stories, wonderful stories are there. No? In the path, there is a book. What is called in the journey to Tibet.
After the Himalayas.
That book. Gangadhar recalled, when I first saw the entirely snow-clad, huge and bright peak on which the temple of Kedarnath is situated, I was stupefied. The temple of Kedarnath was on the lap of a huge peak, and the entire peak was now revealing itself before me. It was as bright as the glowing morning sun. Thousands of soft rays were emerging from the peak, and they were all enveloping and overwhelming me. I thought to myself that I had come to this place of eternal light, leaving the eternal darkness permanently behind. I could not look at the snow white peak for long. My eyes became indrawn, and the huge peak of the mountain appeared before me as an eternal, uncreated symbol of Lord Shiva. This was not imagination, it was a divine experience. Nowhere else in the entire Himalayas can you see such a resplendent form of Shiva. Gangadhar started to Tibet then, Tibet journey. Gangadhar learned the Tibet language in the 15 days and therefore 3 months and stayed there 3 months. Gangadhar again went to Tibet, this time to Dawa. While joining Lhasa, he was arrested, etc. etc. Then in July 1889, Gangadhar went to Tibet third time. He planned to go to Lhasa, but many of the Tibetans objected to his going, suspecting him of being a British spy. His former friends too felt differently and advised him to leave Tibet as soon as possible. He made the three determined efforts to reach Lhasa but failed. Gangadhar returned to Kashmir via Ladakh, where he was arrested by the British government. He was released when it was confirmed that he was a monk and had no political motive. As he was quite familiar with Tibetan people, language and customs, and religious culture, the British government offered him a council's post in Tibet, but he refused. Now, in June 1890, after being away for 3.5 years, Gangadhar returned to Baranagar Monastery. And Vivekananda and other brother disciples were extremely happy to have him back. to hear his adventurous travel. Swamiji affectionately called him Ganges, as his name was Gangadhara, and sometimes Ice Father, as his skin had been burnt with cold. In the first week of July, Swamiji advised Gangadhar to take a final monastic vows in front of Ramakrishna's picture, and in accordance with the Vedantic tradition, Gangadhar then became Swami Akhandananda, which means undivided bliss. Swamiji now wanted to practice austerity in Himalayas. So in mid-July, he left the monastery and taking Akhandananda as his companion. But before their departure, they went to the Holy Mother for his blessings. She blessed them and told Akhandananda, "My son, Holy Mother is telling Akhandananda Swami that, my son, you know the way of the life in mountains. Please take care of Noren so that he may not suffer from lack of food." And then he had a trip uh, with Akhandananda. And in late 1890, Akhandananda he was in sick and he felt little improved. It was suggested that he go to Mirat. Swamiji had also become very sick in Rishikesh and all this. Then Akhandananda went to Delhi in Western India. That trip is also long stories there, visiting many places. Then he came back to Alam Bazar again in 1895, returned to the Alam Bazar monastery via Delhi, Atwa, Allahabad, Varanasi, etc. Monastic indolence is terrible. Akhandananda was a man of action. He could not tolerate a monk who forgot his ideal, indulging in eating, sleeping, and gossiping. Akhandananda had so much energy and so much love for the master that he traveled for nearly 3 weeks in remote villages to collect Nageshwar Champa, a favorite flower of Sri Ramakrishna. During this trip, he taught the villagers sanitation, healthcare, and so many other things. It was where it was uh, it was a haunted house in Baranagar, and then rented. The brother disciples are happy to have Akhandananda again for 5 years. The monastery is poor, and in the monastery we only ate lentil hotchpotch vegetable curry. At night we ate chapatis without butter, but because their minds were filled with divine bliss, the hardship did not disturb. But anyway, one day when he was in his way to bathe in the Ganga, he found an old woman suffering from cholera. He cleaned her unconscious body, changed her clothing, and then sent her to the hospital. So that his heart was so touching for the suffering of others. In the Baranagar monastery, there are some other stories. And then in Murshidabad, that is the in March 1897, Vivekananda went to Darjeeling for rest. Akhandananda left for Navadvip, birthplace of Sri Chaitanya, in, and Murshidabad, an important historical site. He was thinking of returning to Himalayas for the remainder of his days after seeing some of the notable places in Bengal. In Murshidabad district, however, the Swami encountered a terrible famine. He saw death and dying everywhere in the village. He saw emaciated cattle, their herdsmen. At night he slept in a shop at Datpur village, which belonged to the local ruler. Akhandananda said, reminisced, "Early one morning I washed my hands and feet in the Ganga and was approaching the bazaar when I discovered a Muslim girl about 14, clad in a dirty rag, weeping bitterly. She held at her waist an earthen pitcher, the bottom of which had given away. When the Swami inquired about the cause of his grief, the girl said, "Father, there is famine, and we have nothing at home to eat. At home we have only this pitcher." for carrying water and to earthen cooking pots. There is no second vessel to carry a water. My mother will beat me, so I'm crying out of fear. Then Akhandananda happened to have 4 annas in his pocket. He took the girl to a shop and bought a pitcher for her as well as some puffed rice. So that is the way our first relief work started in the Akhandananda saw other situation also. Uh, as he was leaving the village in the morning, a middle-aged woman approached him, saying, "Father, Gaya Vaishnavi and an old woman is dying. Please do something for her." The Swami expressed his inability to do anything, but later relented at her insistence. He went to see this old woman who was suffering from diarrhea and covered in filth. To save her life, the Swami rushed to one Mr. Jivan Krishna Das, the landlord of the village, and arranged daily food for her. He even begged for a piece of cloth for a clerk for that woman. The old woman expressed his gratitude. Uh, The old woman expressed her gratitude with tearful eyes. "Father, you must have been my son in my previous life." Akhandananda replied, "Why your previous life? I am your son in this life." And then he went to Baharampur, Murshidabad, in the district town of. And then here also he stopped for a night in the Bhapta village. In the morning, when he was about to leave, he heard a voice said, "Where will you go? You have many things to do here." He heard the voice thrice, so did not proceed further. A teacher of Bhapta school invited the Swami to attend Annapurna worship in Mahula, and Akhanda Nanda stayed over there and started teaching the villagers with Gita class and other things. So Akhandananda later wrote, "I carried a picture of Ramakrishna with me. Every day after my bath in Ganga, I would offer some flowers before it and pray to the Master with tearful eyes for the famine-stricken people of the land. Thus I prayed every morning and evening. One day there was a response. I heard the Master's voice, 'Wait and see what happens.' On 15th of May 1897, Akhandananda started the famine relief work in Mahula and several other villages in the Murshidabad district. It was the first organized relief work of the Ramakrishna Mission, which had been started by Swami Vivekananda on May 1, 1897. So this is the and it was wonderful to know that how Akhandananda Swami used to serve these orphan, homeless orphans. They when he used to bathe 6, 7, 8 small children of Muslim family, no home, nothing, no dress, nothing, no food. But he used to take care of all of them and educate them. It is such a capable person living in a small village for 6, 7 boys. And that was his mission because he got the voice from Sri Ramakrishna's command, "Stay, and we have something to do." And that's why this is the speciality of this Ramakrishna tradition, to serve God in man, not in a theory. This Akhandananda Swami used to bathe every day these small children, 5, 6 years children, as you know, so like a mother. And when he used to bathe them, he used to chant this mantra. Sahasro Shirsa Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat. The mantra we chant for performing the puja time, our deity. The same mantra with the orphan, the Muslim boys who are all dirty, and they're worshipping same Narayana there. So this is the uniqueness of this Ramakrishna's children, doing, performing. And then at Shivnagar and Sargachi started. And then in October 1899, Akhandananda was invited by Raja of Lalgola to attend Durga Puja, and in his place also distributed about 15,000 pieces of cloth among the poor. So the activity became much bigger. Akhandananda wrote to Swamiji, who was then in America, mentioning the relief work. Swamiji replied from California, I am very glad to receive your letter and go to the details of your news. Learning and wisdom are superfluities. The surface glitter merely, but it is the heart that is the seat of all power. It is not in the brain, but in the heart that the Atman, possessed of knowledge, power, and activity, has its seat. The nerves of the heart are 101. The chief nerve centers near the heart, called the sympathetic ganglia, is where the Atman has its citadel. The more heart you will be able to manifest, the greater will be the victory of yours to achieve. So Swamiji is inspiring Gangadhar to expand the heart. Now this type of activity continues, and then the master and Swamiji were really one. The one spirit, as it were, manifested in twin personalities. What we find in the master in the form of a seed becomes fully developed in Swamiji. Swamiji is to Ramakrishna what is the commentary is to Vedanta Sutras. The one is complementary to the other. They are in perfect, in fact, inseparable. The obverse and reverse of the same coin. Sri Ramakrishna one day cried aloud from the housetop for those young spiritual seekers who had to come to him and pour forth their lives offering on the altar of this service. And they came, but the cry has not ended there. It is still ringing through the air and shall continue for the eons. May many have come after that, many are still coming, and many more will come in future. That is the statement is Akhandananda Swami in the talking. Now towards the end is towards the end in 1934, after the passing of Swami Shivananda, Akhandananda became the president of the Ramakrishna order. From then on, he lived in both Belur Math and Sargachi, but spent most of the time in Sargachi. In January 1934, there was a devastating earthquake in Bihar, and many people were killed. In April, Akhandananda went to inspect the Ramakrishna Mission relief work. His presence raised the morale of the people, and he also inspired monks to serve the afflicted as God. He returned to Belur Math on 10th May and then went to Sargachi in the last week of May. As president of the Ramakrishna Order, Akhandananda initiated large number of people. On November 4, 1934, he went to Mumbai and Nagpur, where he inspired many seekers of God. Once somebody asked the Swami, on whom shall I meditate first, the form of the Guru or the form of the Ishta? Where shall I concentrate? Akhandananda replied, Ramakrishna is the Guru and he is the Ishta. There is no first or second about it. The heart is the best place for concentration. Think that you are seeing him face to face. He is seated in your heart. Those who are initiated can think of their own guru in their beginning if it helps them. There is no hard and fast rule. The only thing needful is to constant recollection of the Lord. Another time, the devotee asked him if he had seen God. Akhandananda humbly replied, Yes, while I was in the Himalayas, I saw God face to face. Now, The end of November, Akhandananda returned to Calcutta. Then in 3rd December 34, he went back to Sargachi. Ramakrishna's centenary celebration scheduled in February 13, 1936. And there is the story on 19 January 1936, Miss Josephine MacLeod, we read that story, went to Sargachi to see the Swami and asked, "Give me your message, Swami, for the coming centenary." And Swami Akhandananda replied, "I have no message of my own, but I have received this message from the Lord." What is that? "I am infinite and eternal. What is my centenary?" Miss MacLeod said, "All right, I shall take this as his message with me." And then, however, then ultimately he gave a message. He dictated the message afterwards. He was in sleeping at night. Master spoke from my heart. Since they are asking you so much, why don't you write this message? Truly, what can be the centenary's message he gave? And then Akhandananda stayed in Belun Math for months. His body was feeble. It was difficult for him to even talk, walk. Doctor examined him, found that he had diabetes. Nevertheless, he returned to Sargachi and continued his spiritual ministry. Akhandananda loved his village ashram dearly and never liked to be away from it for long. However, he cherished a desire to give up his body in Belur Math, where Vivekananda had installed the relics of the Master. The Swami wish providentially was fulfilled ultimately. That story is there. I can just recall one story. Swami Brahmananda used to play trick with him. This Akhandananda Swami uh, will always try to go back to Murshidabad and this village, poor village, Sargasi. But our Maharaj wants to keep him in Belur Math. So he said, "No, no, no, I'll have to go. There is my children, my orphan boys are there. Who will take care? I'll have to go." And then he said, and forced in such a way, "Okay, one date cancel cancel this, you will go next day." Like that, it is cancelled and cancelled one, two, three times. Then he said, "No, I shall go." And then he ultimately fixed a date and ticket was purchased, everything, and the palanquin came. And Akhandananda entered into the palanquin. Even now, I do not know, the Lalgola passenger is the only train available. And the whole day there are two or three trains. We also went to see Premeshananda Maharaj. Either there is a night 8 o'clock train, or there is something at morning sometime. So those are the two trains. So he Maharaj arranged to have him a train in the evening. So evening time, so 8 o'clock train is that. So from Belur Math you will go to the Sialda station. So to certain distance, probably whatever the way of reaching the Sialda station. So certain palanquin has been arranged, and Raja Maharaj told him, "Bring it back." So Maharaj was sitting, Akhandananda Maharaj was sitting in the palanquin, thinking that he is reaching Sialda station. And after taking them a long time moving here and there and there, and then ultimately they stop the palanquin in the ground, and he thought he has come to Sialda station, and it is all balloon mud under the mango tree. So and Maharaj is greeting him again back. So that was a very funny thing, that Maharaj will try to keep him in the balloon mud, but his heart will be in the Sargachi, and that is for the poor, homeless, helpless people. On February 5, 1987, a cable was sent to Belur Math to inform the monks of Akhandananda's serious condition. Two monks arrived from Belur Math the next day, and the local doctor's approval decided to take the Swami to Calcutta for treatment. As Swami Akhandananda was carried on a stretcher to the railway station, some farmers on the street tearfully said to him, "Father, go well, get well soon, and come back." Akhandananda blessed them with smile. The train left and he fell unconscious on the way. The train arrived at Calcutta 11 p.m. He was first taken to Udbodhan by ambulance and then to Belur Math at the midnight via Dakshineshwar. His bed was made ready next to Vivekananda's room. Several doctors tried their utmost to save this great soul. At last, at 3:07 p.m. on 7th of February 1937, Swami Akhandananda passed away at the age of 72. His body was cremated on the bank of Ganga, close to Swamiji's temple in Belur Math. To see God in all being is the culmination of Vedantic experience. Swami Akhandananda had the experience, so he served all as God. A few years before his passing away, the Swami told a monk his life's philosophy. Quote, "The Master has still kept me alive for his work. Distribute yourself among others, and bring others' soul within yourself." What a beautiful message. The Master has still kept me alive for his work. Distribute your capital self among others, and bring other small souls within yourself. You will see how much joy you will get from it. On the other hand, if you are always busy about yourself, you will be entangled within yourself, small. You will kill your big self and you will die. The more you disseminate yourself among the people, the more you will attain bliss, and that will lead you to self realization. That was the wonderful message given by Akhandananda. So, our salutation to this great ideal and to love God and His children as He followed. That will be our prayer. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. This is the last quotation is very beautiful that one should just give his own self. That is the philosophy of Swamiji's idea, unselfishness.
I put it all Muslim boys,
Eh?
all Muslim boys
Ah, yes.
in the
Ah, because that was the, I think community was Muslim community.
I wonder.
Maybe, I do not know. Record is, may say, history may say. But it started with that Muslim girl who broke his water pot, her water pot. Okay, right. No, on end stream, that also.